One of my friends from school used to work at a Spirit Halloween, and this was around maybe 2016 in October. Now, at the time of this story, she was around 17 at the time of this story, and of course, I'll call her Caitlin. Caitlin was doing part time there as she still had school, so they decided to give her some shifts that pretty much are afternoon shifts, if that makes sense. Basically, after school ones. As Caitlin was working in this Halloween store called Spirit Halloween, it was well late into the night. It happened to be maybe around sometime around maybe 9 p.m. when the store was just closing when a man suddenly walks in. Caitlin at first was confused and asks the man if he needed help with anything, and they were just closing. The man says, "What time do you get off of work, sweetie?" Now that really made Caitlin freaked out. So she said to the man that she'll go get the manager, and she does. When she goes to the manager, she ends up telling the manager that there was a weird, creepy guy in the Halloween store. The manager obviously goes to see if he was there, only to find that he was not in the store. That was really odd. So Caitlin, along with her boss, went outside and checked the parking lot to see if there was any trace of the guy. But unfortunately, the guy was nowhere to be found. The next day, when Caitlin arrived, the manager pulled her to the side before she started working and explained what had happened. Apparently, this man had been wanting to lure people into the back of the store where he had robbed people. He has robbed a couple people for money, IDs, etc. He had been doing that for a couple of years, and of course, the police had found him the other day, and he went to prison. Now, I don't know what would have happened to Caitlin if she followed him in that back of the store, but God only knows what could have happened to him. Well, what could have happened to Caitlin obviously would be the alternative if she continued on that way. When my friend, at the time of this story, we'll call him Jaden, was maybe 14 years old, this was around sometime in 2012. Now, Jaden was in high school and freshman at the time, and this happened sometime in October. I can't exactly remember or disclose what actual date it took place, but it definitely took place sometime before Halloween. It was in October, and Jaden was home alone one night as both his parents worked a night shift. Now, he did have an older sister, but she was in college, so she wasn't around. Jaden had been fine home alone as he stayed home alone for quite a few years and never once had any issues. Well, he only had a few minor issues like if the internet went out or if something were to not work and he needed help, he calls his parents and they give him instructions on how to fix things. But nothing too serious until this happened. Now, Jaden was pretty much playing what seemed to be some video games while he was just home alone. Now, this was around the weekend, so pretty much he didn't have school the next day, so he was allowed to stay up as long as he wants. However, his parents had called and said that they wouldn't be back till around maybe 4 a.m., so of course, Jaden ended up taking it as a good opportunity to stay up as long as he could playing video games. As he was playing video games, he got a call from one of his friends, and they were talking about Halloween and what their plans were going to do. As he was on the phone, he ended up hearing what seemed like a knock at the door. At first, he thought that it could have been maybe his neighbor or possibly his parents, so he ended up hanging up the phone for a bit and told his friend he'd call him back. However, it was around midnight, so who would be knocking at the door that late in the day? Jaden gets up and looks through the people to see that there was a woman. Now, this woman looked drunk or high, but he obviously could tell something was really off about that woman. They had a speaker out that talks outside of their doorbell system, so that way they can figure out what this person wanted. Jaden asks the woman how can he help her and stuff like that, but she never replied. She never said anything. She just stared directly at him. Obviously, this was making Jaden uncomfortable, as this woman was just not saying anything. Then he said, "If you're not going to answer me, please get off my property before I call the police." As Jaden said that, the woman looked up at him and said, "That's okay, mister. I just want you to know that the thing is coming, and it will be here soon." With that, the woman takes off running down the street, and as Jaden looked, she was nowhere in sight. At this point, he was confused as to what this woman meant, so he called his dad and explained what had happened and what was the case, and of course, they said to get the police involved. So that's when Jaden calls the cops and explained the situation, which they take his statement when they arrived at the house and moved on. Since then, Jaden has always have a fear about what was that woman thinking. Now, a few of his friends say that this woman could have been from another dimension, or maybe she was drunk or high, obviously was saying weird stuff that made him confused as to what it was. That obviously makes him wonder to this day if that was really what the woman was doing or not. This was not really the most scariest story to make you jump out of your seat. It was the weirdest one that Jaden had ever experienced. He has not seen that woman since, and he does not even know if this woman is still out there or not. So this took place back sometime when I was a teen. Maybe I was 15 or 16. I can't exactly remember, but it was October of either 2013 or 2014. Now, I was a teen at the time of this story, and there was this one youth program that I went to. This youth program called Wednesday Evening Bash or whatever, basically is an activity that night for all the teenagers with disabilities. They pretty much go to these events. They do lots of fun stuff. Now, when I went there one of the times, it was around Halloween. Well, not really exactly Halloween, but it was October, where they had some Halloween themed stuff. I ended up going there, and one of the times I was there, we went to the pumpkin patch. Now, I won't say the exact location, but it was a nice farm area where we get to pet animals and do some fun activities. Now, at the time, my brother came along with my mom, so we went on this little hay ride. It pretty much takes us to a pumpkin patch where we get to go and get our pumpkin. Now, my brother and I got one pumpkin, but my mom actually got one herself. So, as we were getting pumpkins, we were getting some photos. At the time, I had my iPod Touch, but since then, I didn't really have a phone. At the time of this story, one of our friends who had a phone was taking photos of us. And we really enjoyed the photos and stuff, and we seemed to be having a good time. However, it wasn't until maybe a few minutes later, I looked up to see that there was a man. He was standing maybe about near 6 feet tall, and he was looking at everybody. I thought at first that it could have been the dad of one of the kids, but he didn't even look like a parent. He was looking around, and he fortunately had like a camera or something and was taking photos of us. I obviously told my mom about it, and she looked at him, and she noticed that he didn't even look like he had his kid with him. Of course, we alerted the staff, and they ended up confiscating the camera, and they found out that this man had been taking pictures of kids, obviously at inappropriate places, and of course this man was arrested and was banned from the place. Obviously, it really makes me wonder as to what it was, but at this time, I really don't even know what to even expect. This obviously was really messed up. I really didn't even expect this man to do that, but this was definitely something I really have to say. But I was really messed up, and it was just really messed up. I was even younger and didn't even know why this man was taking pictures, but I'm just worried that one of my pictures of me and my brother were in those. That's what I kind of wondered today. But even then still, I don't even know if that's the case. That only makes things a little odd.